Hi kids and welcome back to Yupp Master. We've begun with the chapter of excretion and today we're going to be learning about a very important topic, and that is how exactly your kidneys are going to be helping in maintaining your blood pressure. Okay, so yes, this is probably something new for you where you are learning that the kidneys are also going to be playing an important role in maintaining your blood pressure. Alright, so shall we begin? First of all, when we talk about the regulation of kidney function, that is, which are the body parts exactly which are going to be helpful in letting the kidney do its own functions. So basically we see that there are three parts involved here. All right, the first one being the hypothalamus, the second one being an apparatus which is called as the juxtaglomerular apparatus. Now when we talk about both of these, what exactly and where is this hypothalamus? Well, hypothalamus is a small part, okay, which is located in the brain. And understand one thing, that hypothalamus is like the master of everything, okay. Hypothalamus has the potential that it is the main function of secreting hormones, all right, and those hormones are going to enable all the other hormones to work. So you can say that the hypothalamus is basically secreting hormones which are controlling everything else. So that is a very important center located in the brain. Then there is another apparatus which is called as a juxtaglomerular apparatus. Now juxtaglomerular means, first of all, glomerular, it means glomerulus of the inside the kidney. But the word juxta means in or at the junction of. So this is going to be an apparatus which is at the junction of the glomerulus. And one more thing, something which you may have never thought of, and that is the heart. Even the heart is going to help the kidney to play a role in maintaining the blood pressure to be constant. Alright, so the main three parts of your body which are helping in the regulation of kidney function are: one would be the hypothalamus, second the heart, and third the juxtaglomerular apparatus. Okay, so are you all with me, and shall we begin with this whole concept of how the kidney is going to be helping in regulating the functions of maintaining the BP. All right, now first when we talk about the hypothalamus, okay, how exactly is the hypothalamus letting the kidney maintain its own functions? Well, the hypothalamus is the one which is secreting that important hormone which we have been learning about until now, which is called as ADH. Do you remember this hormone called as ADH? And if you remember, ADH has a strong affinity towards water. Okay, so ADH basically is a water loving hormone, a water saving hormone. And this is the reason why, if at all we talk about ADH, then ADH is going to help prevent water loss happening in the body. If ADH is there, then there will be no water loss as per whatever is not required. Okay, so let us see ahead. When we talk about the hypothalamus, it secretes ADH, and that ADH, we know that it is going to be working on the nephron and helps the nephron do its own work. Now next, when we come to the juxtaglomerular apparatus, okay, as I told you, since it has the word juxta means at the junction, and glomerulus is a part of the inside the kidney, right? So an apparatus which is at the junction of the glomerulus. Let's see where that is and what is it constituting of. Now in this diagram, as you can see, this here is the Bowman's capsule, and inside that, this part here is the glomerulus. Okay, can you see these cells on top of the glomerulus? Okay, these are the podocytes. Okay, the cells which have a feet like projections around them, those are the podocytes. Now I want you to concentrate on basically three areas. Okay, let's see which those areas are. First of all, this being the Bowman's capsule, ahead which will come is the tubule which we call as the PCT, right? And then the PCT goes ahead and it will form the, remember that next part, what is the part immediately after the PCT? It wasn't it called as the loop of Henle? And then after the loop of Henle, finally came the DCT. Now, just because in your notebook we draw the whole nephron from left side to the right side does not mean that in your kidney also everything is placed picture perfect like how you draw it. Okay, many a times it happens that the PCT is coiled, the DCT is coiled, that's why we're calling it as a convoluted tubule. So let us imagine that your DCT has been coiled in such a way that the coiling of the DCT has managed to come all the way over here. Okay, let's say this tubule over here, this is what I'm drawing right now. This, let's imagine that to be the DCT. Okay, this is the DCT. Now what do I do? This whole part over here, this is the DCT. Alright. Now I'd like to take a cross section of the DCT. When we take a cross section of the DCT, this is basically how it is appearing from inside. Okay. So this structure that you see over here is basically nothing but a cross section seen of the DCT. If you remember, the distal convoluted tubule was lined internally with the help of these cells, which are called as the cuboidal cells. Okay. Now let's see where the difference lies. Okay. Now pay attention. Okay. Over here you have the DCT. This is the transverse section of the DCT. Now I'd like you to see how inside the DCT, can you see those square shaped cells? Yes, all of these. Can you see these square shaped cells here? And tell me, what is the function of this? This is going to be doing the work of absorption. Okay. What type of absorption had we called this as? We learned this word when we were doing urine formation. We called it as reabsorption. Okay. So that's why there is cuboidal cells there. Now can you see, look very closely at this part that I'm covering over here. Can you see how in this region those cuboidal cells have managed to come together and they form a dense network over there? So can you see over here how this whole network, this area is there? Okay. And can you see how the cells have been compactly placed very near each other and they are dense and they end up looking like one big spot over there? Okay. So basically, because they look like a big spot, we can give it the name of macula. Okay. The word macula means spot, and because they are dense and very near each other, you may call this as macula densa. Okay, you may call this whole thing as macula densa, where all those cells have come near each other and they are looking like one big spot. Now ahead we see other structures also. Okay, the three components. The first one we see over here, remember this arteriole. This arteriole was called as the efferent arteriole, and the efferent arteriole, can you see how they have cells over here? These cells are called as the JG cells. Okay, they're known as the JG cells, or you may call them as the juxtaglomerular cells. Okay, and also there is one more area where you can find cells. That's this area right here. Okay, and these cells over here are called as the mesangial cells. What are they called as? Mesangial cells. So three parts we just spoke about. The first are these cells right here. Let me just highlight it in yellow. First we're talking about these cells here. This first part are the juxtaglomerular cells. The second part we are talking about is this part over here, and this is the part we're going to call as the macula densa. The third part I'd like you to check is this part here, and this part here is going to be called as the mesangial cells. So these three structures, the juxtaglomerular cells, the macula densa, and the mesangial cells, all these three structures together are coming together and they are going to be forming an apparatus which we can call as the juxtaglomerular apparatus. Okay, now let's see what are the functions. We want to concentrate right now only on the juxtaglomerular cells. Which cells were these called as, if you remember? These were called as JG cells. Okay, the juxtaglomerular cells. Now, when we talk about these cells, what is their main function? These are going to do the work of secreting an enzyme, and that enzyme is going to be called as renin. Okay, it is an enzyme called as renin. Now, what is the function of renin? We will see in a little while. So, just remember one thing, that these juxtaglomerular cells, when they are going to be activated, okay, only when they are activated, they will start secreting an enzyme which is going to be called as renin. All right. Now, let's say you come across somebody walking down the road and he gets hit by a bike and he falls down and injures his leg. Now on his leg injury, let's say that he experiences some bleeding and there's a lot of bleeding happening. So what happens eventually? We would rush him to the hospital, right? So actually when he is bleeding, can I say that his blood volume, okay, when he is bleeding, what's happening to his blood volume? Can I say that the blood volume is decreased? Okay, and eventually until we reach the hospital, there's going to be a lot of blood loss happening. So if the blood volume is decreasing, then naturally even the pressure, the blood pressure, okay, with which the blood is flowing inside those vessels, that is also going to be decreasing. Okay, so if the blood volume is decreasing, then the blood pressure is going to be decreasing too. All right, now in this person's body who is bleeding, we make him reach the hospital. But then when we reach the hospital, when we check his vital information, we are still able to see that in spite of all this blood loss, still his blood pressure is normal. But didn't we see that when the blood volume is decreased because of his blood loss, then eventually the blood pressure should be decreased too, which means that even though the blood volume has fallen down, there is some mechanism happening in his body until we make him reach the hospital and until he gets some help, which is helping in maintaining his BP constant. Okay, so let us first see what exactly that is. Okay, let's see what that whole mechanism is. Okay, all right, good evening. I'm having some of you join now. All right, good to have you. Let's see now. We have an apparatus we just spoke about right now. That is an apparatus which was called as the Juxtaglomerular Apparatus. Okay, now what are we talking about? We are learning right now the ways in which the kidney is going to help to maintain BP. So right now we have a man with us who is experiencing bleeding, and because he is bleeding, his blood volume has come down. Okay, now when the blood volume is low, then naturally after a given time, even the blood pressure will fall down. Okay, so now let's see that even after the blood volume and the blood pressure falling down, still without any external help, your body or that person's body will be able to maintain the BP normal. Okay, let's see what are the things happening in the body which helps in this maintaining. Now, whenever we say that the BP is low, okay, so low BP, this low BP is going to activate those cells. Which cells are we talking about? We're talking about those juxtaglomerular cells. Okay, so whenever the BP is low, the juxtaglomerular cells will be activated. Now, when these cells are activated, remember I told you that they're going to be secreting an enzyme. And what is that enzyme called as? That enzyme was called as renin. Okay, that renin enzyme is only activated when the BP is low. All right, so on secretion of this renin enzyme, where is it going to act on? Renin is going to be put into the bloodstream. And right now, I am sitting here, you are sitting at your home. Do you know that in your blood already there is an inactive enzyme flowing? Okay, and that inactive enzyme is being put into the blood by none other than your liver. So right now also in your blood there is an inactive enzyme which has been put by the liver. And what is that enzyme called as? It's called as angiotensin Ii. Now it seems like a very big word, so let's just break it up. Okay, first of all I'll tell you this word ogen. Okay, whenever you see that word ogen, it always indicates that ogen means it is an inactive enzyme. Okay, so whenever you have an inactive enzyme, naturally you know that you want to be activating it. Let's see the other parts of this word. The other parts, tensin. Okay, now this word tensin comes from the word tension, and tension basically means pressure. And angio, the word angio means blood vessel. So this is this whole thing put together, angiotensin Ii. This means that this is going to be an inactive enzyme which has the capacity to apply pressure onto the blood vessels. Okay, so angio means blood vessel, tensin means pressure, and ogen is an inactive enzyme. So basically, whenever renin comes in contact with angiotensin ogen, this is going to have the ability to activate it. Right now, because it is in an ogen form, I can say that it is inactive. But as soon as it comes in contact with renin, the renin is going to activate it and it will convert angiotensin ogen into angiotensin. But the first angiotensin that comes is going to be called as angiotensin 1. Alright. So can you see how when this is activated, can you see how this word ogen has been eliminated? So angiotensin ogen is activated to form something called as angiotensin 1. But angiotensin 1 doesn't complete the work. What is the work? Ultimately, what do we need? Ultimately, this BP that is low, we need to rectify it and bring it back to normal. Angiotensin 1 is not able to do that work on its own. So it goes to some other part of the body in order to get some help. Alright. So where does it go? It's going to be going to the lungs. And did you know that even your lungs are able to secrete an enzyme? And what is that enzyme called as? Well, I'll tell you the function of it. That enzyme is going to be converting angiotensin 1 to form angiotensin 2. So can I say that this is an enzyme which is able to convert angiotensin from one form to another? That's why you may call this enzyme as angiotensin converting enzyme, because it is able to convert angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2. So because it is a converting enzyme, it can be called as ACE, okay, angiotensin converting enzyme. Alright. Now, since we have attained now angiotensin 2, alright, what are the properties of angiotensin 2? This is the major important part here. Angiotensin 2 has two major functions, okay. First function of angiotensin 2, it is a potent vasoconstrictor. Now, this whole word, potent means that it has a potential to, okay. And vaso, I told you vaso is having the meaning of blood vessel. Constrictor means that it has the ability to squeeze the blood vessels. If the blood vessels are squeezed, then naturally the blood pressure will rise. But why has the BP fallen down? Why is the BP low? Because he had blood loss. Blood loss means that the blood volume has dropped down. Yes or no? So if the blood volume has dropped down, just by squeezing the blood vessels, the BP will not be rectified. The very first thing that needs to be acted upon is that the blood volume should be restored. And how are we going to be restoring that blood volume? What do? This angiotensin 2 is going to go to that adrenal gland. Why? It is the adrenal gland which is secreting this hormone. Do you remember the name of this hormone? It was called as aldosterone. And if you remember, I taught you two hormones. One I taught you ADH, and the second hormone I taught you was aldosterone. Okay. Now, out of these two, ADH was the hormone which loved water, and aldosterone was the hormone which was loving salt. Okay. Now, your question is, ma'am, what activates the juxtaglomerular system? Well, juxtaglomerular system is activated when the BP falls down. And how does the BP fall down? Well, what happens? I told you that this is an example where I told you where there is a blood loss. Okay, means let's say he's injured somewhere and the blood he's bleeding. Until we make him reach the hospital, he's going to be facing blood loss. And whenever blood is lost, the blood volume goes down. And when blood volume is down, then the blood pressure will be down too. So basically, when the BP goes down, even the blood that is flowing inside here, you know that blood will always be flowing inside here, but that blood will also be flowing in a lower pressure. So when the pressure inside here is low, then that is what is going to trigger the activation of this whole system. Okay, so whenever BP is low, then this system is going to be activated. When this system is activated, what is all happening? So basically, low BP will activate those juxtaglomerular cells. Where are those cells? In this apparatus over here, the juxtaglomerular cells are the ones over here. Okay, on this arteriole, those cells are the juxtaglomerular cells. When those cells are activated, they are going to be secreting an enzyme which we call as renin. Now, renin is going to be working on an enzyme which is already present in your blood, but it is in its inactive form. Now the main important part here is, if that enzyme is there in the blood already, who has put it there? It has been put in the blood by the liver. So liver has secreted an enzyme already present right now in your blood, that's called as angiotensinogen. Ogen indicating it is inactive. In the presence of renin, that is going to be activated to form angiotensin. Angiotensin 1 is not able to rectify the BP because ultimately that's what we want to do. So angiotensin 1 goes for help. Who does it go to? It goes to the lungs, and the lungs is also secreting a hormone, an enzyme. That enzyme is called as ACE. What is ACE going to do? It's going to be converting angiotensin 1 to form angiotensin 2. Now, I told you that angiotensin 2 has two very important properties. Which are those properties? First, it is a vasoconstrictor, a potent vasoconstrictor. And second, okay, now with this ability of being a vasoconstrictor, this means that it is able to squeeze the blood vessels. But we also need the blood volume to increase because he has been bleeding for so long that he has lost so much of blood. So we need to first restore that blood. Now, do you think immediately the body can be making blood on the spot? Not at all. I'd like you to remember one example. Let's say there is a very poor family where the mother is having only barely half a liter of milk. But then let's say there are 4 children and they all want to drink one glass of milk. What is she going to do? Won't she add a little bit of water? She'll dilute the milk, right? So that each and every child gets some amount of milk. So here also, temporarily, when we need the blood volume to be restored because there's a lot of blood loss happening. So what should we do? Can't we just dilute the blood for a little while just to maintain that blood volume which is normal? So in order to dilute the blood, okay, we need to be attracting water into the blood. Where will water go? Water will go only in those areas where there is a lot of salt. So what do we need? We need that in the blood there should be a high concentration of salt. Okay, so to bring in that high concentration of salt, we're going to be going to this enzyme or this hormone which is called as aldosterone. Remember, ADH was for water and aldosterone was for salt. So if at all in the blood the aldosterone levels increase, then this is naturally going to be pulling into some water, okay, because aldosterone loves salt and salt is ultimately going to pull in water. So by stimulating the secretion of aldosterone, this is going to be helping in increasing the blood volume. Okay, but that is temporary and that is only in the form of increasing it with water. Also, this is going to be helping in squeezing the blood vessels. So when you have the blood volume restored and when you are going to be squeezing those blood vessels, constricting them, then naturally the BP will come back to normal. So this is the way, okay, this is going to cause reabsorption of salt. This is the way how the BP will be corrected. From low BP, it will become corrected. What are the substances that worked over here? The first thing that worked was called as renin. Renin is the thing that was released because the BP was low. After renin, the second important thing that's working here is angiotensin. Alright, so you have renin, then you have angiotensin. Third important substance working here is aldosterone because it will cause reabsorption of sodium. Wherever sodium will go, that's where water will follow. Alright. So the third important part over here is aldosterone. So that's why this whole mechanism that we just studied is also called as the renin angiotensin aldosterone system, or you may also call it as RAS. Okay, RAAS, RAS. That's the RAS which is belonging to the kidney. When we do the next chapter, that is control and coordination, you will see how there is one more RAS that's at the level of the brain. Okay, this is the RAS present in the kidney. All right. So when we see here this whole juxtaglomerular apparatus or the RAS apparatus, this whole apparatus was the way how the kidney helped in making your low BP come back to normal. Now, this example that I gave you was an example where the person is facing an accident and had a lot of blood loss and we had to make him reach the hospital. Sometimes on a casual note also, you might see that somebody is just sitting on the sofa and suffering from low BP. He might be feeling giddy, he might be feeling nauseous, feel like vomiting. And when we check his BP, we might see that his BP is low. So after a little while, we can see that even without doing anything, his BP will come back to normal. So who exactly is working over there? It is the kidneys working there. Okay. So that low BP is being rectified on its own by your own body with the help of this apparatus, which is located in the kidney next to the glomerulus. Hence it is called as the juxtaglomerular. Okay, that's these cells over here. All right, I hope this makes things straight over here. What you can do, I'll just hide myself for a minute and you can take a screenshot of this. This whole apparatus over here was the RAS apparatus in order to convert low BP to normal BP. All right. Okay. Now, this was for low BP. Now, my next question is, what about the opposite condition? What if somebody is suffering from a condition where the BP is high? Now, when I'm saying that there is high BP, I am not saying that the blood pressure patients who are suffering high BP on a normal basis. I am talking about the high BP which we're talking that a casual, like maybe a momentary high BP. Okay, if I just declare to you that okay, even though schools are closed, next week you'll be having a semester exam, won't you get scared? Yes. So these kind of experiences where maybe the BP might shoot up because of sudden stress, even that is going to be managed by the body itself. Okay, now my question to you is, whenever this sudden stress comes, okay, the BP increases. Now, what exactly is the meaning of BP increasing? Let's see that first, okay, understand the whole concept first. Now, let's say I give you a glass, okay, I give you two glasses. Now, in one glass, the fluid that I give you, let's say I'm giving you lemon juice in one glass, okay. And let's say in the other glass, I am giving you a chocolate, very thick Oreo chocolate milkshake, okay. So, this glass over here, this is lemon juice, okay. And the next one, this over here is chocolate milkshake, okay. Now what I tell you is, I'd like you to drink these with a straw. Okay. Now which straw am I going to give you? I am going to give you the lovely straws which you get at the coconut water counters, which are so thin that you would barely get coconut water also through it. Okay. So I give you that straw. I ask you to drink the lemon juice also with that straw. And I ask you to drink that chocolate milkshake also with that straw. Okay. Now, do you think this is going to be an easy task? Well, maybe you might manage to drink the lemon juice. Yes. But what about the chocolate milkshake? What will happen? Even if you try to drink that chocolate milkshake with that straw, what do you have to do? Don't you have to apply a lot of pressure? Yes. Now tell me, why did you have to apply a lot of pressure? You had to apply a lot of pressure because the fluid there, this chocolate milkshake, was thick. Okay. So the pressure is always high when the fluid is thick. Okay. This is what I basically wanted to tell you, that when the pressure is high, okay, high pressure is indicating that the fluid there, okay, is thick fluid. Either you can call it as thick fluid or you may also say that it is viscous fluid. Okay, thick fluid or viscous fluid. Now what are we talking about over here? This whole thing we're talking about was about the blood and the blood pressure. So when I am saying that the blood pressure is high, then this is also indicating to me that the blood is having a lot of salts in it. Okay, salts is what is going to be making the blood thick. All right, so what is the ultimate solution for this? If I want to rectify this high BP, if I want to bring it back to normal, what do I have to do? I will have to eliminate the salts from the blood. I have to remove those extra salts which is making the blood thick. And that is the only way how this BP can come back to normal. Alright. So, shall we begin here? Where if at all the blood is very thick, then you only think which part of the body will be affected the maximum if at all your blood is thick. If the blood is thick, won't the heart be the first part of the body to be affected? Because the heart actually has to sit and pump that blood. And if that blood is going to be thick, then the work of the heart is only going to increase. Ultimately, what will happen is, it will be so heavy on the heart that the heart will not be able to pump that thick blood. So, because it is causing this thick blood condition, because it will cause a major problem to the heart, then the heart has to deal with it itself. And how does the heart do that? The heart is going to be secreting a hormone, which we're going to be calling as the heart hormone. That hormone is called as, look, pay attention to the name of the hormone. If you understand the name of the hormone, you will automatically understand the function of it. It's secreted by a chamber called as the atrium. Okay. Next word is the important word. It's called as a natriuretic hormone. Natri means sodium. How do you write sodium? Did you think of that ever? You write sodium as Na. Yes, and Na is standing for natrium. That is the scientific name of it. So here the Latin word from where all these symbols have been made. So Na stands for sodium, and this hormone here is a natriuretic hormone. So this is a hormone which has the capacity to take sodium and throw it out through urine. Okay, that's why it's called as natriuretic, taking sodium and throwing it out through urine. Sodium indicates sodium chloride, right? That is nothing but salt. So this hormone is going to have the ability to take that salt and throw it out through urine. Did you understand this? So this heart is going to secrete a hormone which is called as ANH. What is the function of ANH? Taking extra salt from the blood and throwing it out through the urine so that the extra salt from blood is removed, and when that extra salt from blood is removed, it will make the BP fall a bit down so that it can come back to normal. So basically what I mean to say is what I told you in the beginning, that high BP indicates that the blood is thick. Okay, and when I say that the blood is thick, then this means that the salts in blood are more than normal. Okay, salt in blood are more than normal. So what do we need to do? We need to throw those salts out. Now, if the salt is too much, which part of the body is going to be affected the maximum? The heart will be affected. Okay, so the heart has to save itself. How does the heart save itself? By secreting a hormone called as ANH. And what is ANH going to do basically? ANH has the capacity to take all that extra salt, from the blood, okay, is going to be thrown out through urine. Okay, it's thrown out through urine, and this whole process of throwing salt through urine is what we're going to call as natriuresis. Okay, remember what is the meaning of natri? Natri means sodium. Uresis means through urine. So natriuresis. Okay, and that is done none other than by the heart by secreting a hormone. Okay, so this hormone, basically what is it made up of? It's made up of a protein, okay, and it is secreted by the upper chambers of the heart. Those upper chambers of the heart are called as atria, and they're secreted by the atria muscles. So these are secreted by the atrial heart muscle cells, okay, and this is going to be causing natriuresis. Who will do the work of natriuresis? The kidney. That's why we say that the kidneys are playing a role in maintaining the blood pressure. Whether the BP is low, it will be working as RAS. If the BP is high, it will be activating the heart hormone, and the heart hormone is called as ANH because it has the function of causing natriuresis. Natriuresis means excretion of excessively large amount of sodium through the urine. So what happens eventually over here? This is going to be enabling the blood volume to decrease. Okay, why? Because all the salt will be lost through urine. So blood volume will fall down, and also if the blood volume falls down, then naturally the blood pressure will fall down too. And hence, this is the way how this heart hormone ANH is going to help along with the kidneys to convert that high BP into low BP. Okay, so I hope this whole concept was clear over here. Okay, so now we have that high BP has been converted to low BP. So before we begin our next topic, I'd like you to understand two very important things. If the BP, talking about the blood pressure, okay, BP can either be low, okay, or BP can be high, right? If the BP is low, then which is the apparatus that the kidney is going to be helping us with? Low BP, kidney will be using the RAS system. What was RAS all about? It was called as renin, okay, angiotensin, aldosterone system. Okay, over here, besides the kidney, which were the other body parts which were helping it work? Remember those other body parts? They were the liver and the lungs. Okay, liver is what secreted angiotensinogen, and lungs was what was secreting ACE, angiotensin converting enzyme. Okay, now coming back to the high. If the BP is high, then this is indicating that the salts are more, and to remove salts from the body, we require a hormone coming from the heart, and that hormone is going to be called as ANH hormone. So atrial natriuretic hormone, let's just write that out. It's called as atrial because it is secreted by the atrial heart muscles, and it causes natriuresis, okay, and it is a hormone. Okay, remember that this is a hormone which is made up of protein. It's a protein hormone. Okay, so this is basically how the BP is going to be rectified in the body by our kidneys, be it high BP or be it the low BP. Okay, is this clear for you? Now, when we talk about the accessory organs of excretion, okay, now these accessory organs of excretion basically means that it is an organ which is performing excretion, but its main function is not excretion. When we talk about our kidneys, the main function of kidney is excretion, and that's why we will call the kidney as a primary human organ, excretory organ. Yes, because its primary work is excretion. But okay, now your question is what causes diabetes? Now diabetes is a topic which would come under our human nutrition, okay, or we can, when we talk about the pancreas. Remember, if you know, pancreas is a hormone which is of an endocrine gland, and pancreas secretes a hormone which is called as insulin. Okay, the pancreas secretes a hormone called as insulin. What is the work of insulin? Basically, two parts I'd like to talk about. One part I'd like to talk about blood. Another part I'd like to talk about cells. Okay, now when we talk about blood and cells, you know that whenever you eat food, when you eat food, it is going to be absorbed in the intestine. And after absorbing in the intestine, where does it go? All that food will break down, and it's broken down the simple molecules. Can I call those as glucose? Okay, it will have glucose in it. So when glucose is absorbed, I mean that glucose is going to be taken to the blood. Okay, now we don't want the glucose to stay in the blood. Why have you eaten food? So that glucose that you're eating can reach the cells, right? So when you have glucose present in the blood, we need to now take it out of the blood and make it reach the cell. But the glucose doesn't do that on its own. So that is why this hormone comes into action. The hormone insulin will take that glucose from the blood and make it reach to the level of the cell. So the work of taking glucose from blood and taking it towards the cell is the function of insulin. Okay. Now, if at all insulin is not produced enough, who is secreting insulin? Pancreas. Okay. Pancreas is secreting insulin. If insulin is not secreted enough, because maybe there is some function or not working in the pancreas, then what will happen? All that glucose will not go to the cells and it will stay in the blood. And if it stays in the blood, that's why we say here that the blood sugar level will increase. And that's why whenever we talk about that somebody is suffering from diabetes, then in diabetes the first thing that we see is that in their blood the sugar level is too high. Why? Insulin is not working, and insulin does the work of taking that sugar from the blood, giving it to the cell. But if insulin is not there, who is going to take it out of the blood and give it to the cell? There's nobody there. That's why whenever we have a diabetic patient, the remedy for it, or rather the medicine that we give, is in the form of injections. Injections of what? Injections of insulin. Okay, so insulin injections are given for the diabetic patients. Okay, so I hope you understand what was diabetes. Okay, a little off track. So continuing back, accessory organs of excretion. Well, primary organs are the ones which are the kidneys, whose main function of is excretion. Accessory organs would be organs like skin. Okay, in skin you know that there are glands which are called as sweat glands. Now I'll tell you that sweat is not only water, but sweat also contains salt, okay, water, and little bit of urea also. So isn't that also doing the work of excretion? But this is excretion, yes, but is the main function of skin excretion? No, skin's main function are other things. So because it also does excretion, then we can say that skin is an accessory organ of excretion. Okay, so whenever you have an organ, its main function, okay, is going, then it will be called as a primary. Because the kidney's main function is excretion, kidney is a primary organ of excretion. But when we talk about skin, it is an accessory organ of excretion, because excretion is not its primary work. Its primary work would be things like protection. Okay, then one more organ of excretion can be called as the liver. Okay, what is the function of liver? To secrete bile. Okay, to secrete enzymes. Okay, but liver also does the work of the bile that is secreting. It is not the main function. Liver's main functions are other functions. The liver does the work of storing glucose, okay, in the form of glycogen. So, but because it also is excreting out bile, we can say that liver is also an accessory human excretory organ. So, I hope this clears out what is primary and what is an accessory organ. Alright. So, with this, we are completing the excretory system. Alright. In our next lectures in the following week, we will now begin with the control and coordination chapter. We will learn all about the nervous system. Alright. So, until our next lecture, you stay home. Stay safe and join me for our next lecture. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.